Welcome to Module 2 of Men and Masculinities. After waiting a few weeks to allow you and your classmates to secure access to our required textbook, in this second module, we will start our reading of the 4th edition of Manhood in America, A Cultural History by Michael Kimmel. If you're still waiting for your copy, I have left one printed copy for you and your classmates to check out for 2 hours at a time from the reserve desk at our Cerritos College Library. In Module 2 of our Men and Masculinities course, specifically, we'll be reading the preface to the 4th edition, the introduction toward a history of manhood in America, Chapter 1, the birth of the self-made man, and Chapter 2, Born to Run, self-control and fantasies of escape. Taken together, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 compose Part 1 of Manhood in America, the making of the self-made man in America. Combined, the preface, the introduction, Chapter 1, and Chapter 2 represent about 70 pages of reading. Our goals will be first to complete that by the end of the second week of this module, and then to take a quiz on what we have read by the end of the third week of this module. To help you and your classmates to understand what is most important to pay attention to as you read, as well as what you will likely see questions about on the quiz on this first part of Manhood in America, at the end of the module, I've created 3 sets of reading questions. We will participate in a class discussion for each of those 3 sets of questions. One set for both the preface and the introduction, one set for Chapter 1, and one set for Chapter 2. For each discussion, you will share responsibility with at least one classmate for helping us to find answers to 2 of those reading questions. These discussions, which we will have for each chapter of Manhood in America that we will read this semester, are important parts of our active co-construction of our knowledge about men and masculinities. In addition to discussing the first part of Manhood in America and taking a quiz on it, at the end of Module 2, we will also complete a culminating writing assignment. In Essay 2, you will write about 4 shorter texts, available in the form of PDFs in the materials for the module, that are related to the dominant form of American masculinity Kimmel calls the self-made man. An excerpt from the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin by, Benjamin Franklin. A speech called Self-Made Men by Frederick Douglass. The lyrics to the song Hurricane from Hamilton, an American musical, by Lin-Manuel Miranda, and the lyrics to the song Wrote My Way Out by Miranda, Nasir Jones, David Brewster, and Egbert Dawkins III. Fans of contemporary American rap may better know those last 3 writers by their respective stage names, Nas, Dave East, and Alla Black. Speaking of that dominant form of American masculinity, the self-made man, I want to end this Welcome to Module 2 with a short summary of some of Michael Kimmel's most important points in Part 1 of Manhood in America. This short summary is, of course, not at all a substitute for reading approximately 70 pages and for participating in 3 class discussions about them. Think of it instead as sort of a rough framework for your notes. In Part 1, Kimmel explains that what has become the dominant form of American masculinity is what he calls the self-made man, and enumerates elements that have become associated with it throughout the history of the United States. 6 of those elements have been sexuality, race, class, age, region, and religion. In that order, the dominant form of American masculinity has been straight, white, middle class, middle-aged, northern, and Christian, specifically Protestant. Of course, none of that means that there has ever been in America only one way to be a man or only one form of masculinity. As a reminder, that is why our course is called Men and Masculinities, plural, instead of man and masculinity, singular. In fact, Kimmel tells us that after the United States won its independence from Great Britain at the end of the Revolutionary War in 1783, there were 3 forms of masculinity competing for dominance in America. He calls these the genteel patriarch, the heroic artisan, and the self-made man. The genteel patriarch and the heroic artisan were older forms of masculinity, characterized by stability and security. The stability and security of the patriarchs was based in part on the control of their lands. The stability and security of the artisans in part on the control of their shops and the labor in them. Often not only their labor, but also the labor of their apprentices. The self-made man was a newer form of masculinity, characterized by instability and insecurity. but also the opportunity for social mobility. It was so new, in fact, that the term self-made man itself was not coined until 1832 by an American politician, Henry Clay. Essentially, the promise of the self-made man was that through his hard work, he could win wealth in the marketplace, that he could rise as high as his striving would allow in American society. In Kimmel's analysis, the self-made man became the dominant form of American masculinity by the middle of the 1800s. Right around then, the Civil War represented, from the perspective of masculinity studies, the ultimate triumph of the self-made man over the genteel patriarch. Because one of the elements, remember, that had become associated with the self-made man was region. In terms of region, the dominant form of American masculinity was northern, not southern. Though the self-made man had become the dominant form of American masculinity, from the early 1800s, plenty of observers had noticed the problems that came hand in hand with its promise. The self-made man was anxious, restless, and lonely. He often felt that he had to constantly prove himself and his manhood, and he often tended to see other men primarily as not companions, but as his competitors for that success in the marketplace. And men who happened to possess the elements associated with that dominant form of American masculinity too often tried to stack the deck against groups perceived as potential competitors by erecting barriers that prevented equal access to or benefits from the country's educational, financial, legal, and political systems. That exclusion is one of the three solutions to the problem of the self-made man: his fears, frustrations, and failures. The other two are self-control and escape, that have been dominant themes in the history of American masculinity. As Kimmel shows throughout Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, these themes are apparent in both the lives of real people and the stories of fictional characters created by American society. Still, by the end of the 1800s, American masculinity was perceived to be in crisis, the meanings of manhood made uncertain by three historical developments. But that's where we'll pick up in Module 3. Until then, I hope you enjoy reading this first part of Kimmel's Manhood in America. I look forward to seeing your no doubt thoughtful engagement with these ideas and your contributions to our class discussions, your quizzes, and your essays.